It's already there.
All right. I'm not sure how it works with a stage. I'm not sure if it has to be invited, so hopefully it's recording. If not, then whatever. So yeah, whoop-de-doo. Inaugural conversation about everyday life with Mobian girls, which is my currently semi on hiatus, semi still in progress erotic fan fiction that I've been working on for at least 3 years now. Three, probably, maybe 3.5. I don't know. Wow, that kind of makes me sad whenever I think about how much I've actually gotten done so far. But yeah, hello everybody that might possibly be listening to this if I just happen to post it on YouTube later. That's what this is. It's just kind of a roundtable bullshit discussion to talk about my fan fiction, answer some questions, get input from other people, deep dive into lore, different kind of ideas, stuff that I could possibly address in the future. Basically, to be perfectly honest, it's just a selfish thing I'm trying to do to get myself reinvigorated to write. Been in kind of a slump lately, and I figure getting other people to show interest would get me to show interest. So here we are. Hopefully everybody can, kickstart me back into feeling a little bit more motivated. But yeah, let's see who all we have present. Celeste is here. Celeste, Ryan, and Fours, both long-term friends of mine. Celeste is the head admin and writer over at Sonic Legacy. Fours is also an art boy over there. He's got his own commissions. Celeste is present. Sweet is present, but she's currently muted. She's also an artist over at Sonic Legacy. Let's see, we got Cedric is in the audience at the moment. Let me send him an invite if he wants to speak. Said he you can join the stage if you want to talk. We're talking about my fanfic. Said he's somebody I've known for a while that I actually met through Kiwi Farms of all places during the Great Dylan debacle. But he's a cool dude. He plays spaceship games. He draws bears. He left. So that's cool. That's who all we have present right now. Other people may join. I know there was some scheduling conflicts with a couple other people that had shown interest. So if they join, we'll send them invites, introduce them halfway through. It's no big deal. We're all friends. Everybody here knows everybody. So let me send that again. But yeah, so did anybody want to say hi before we got started? I introduced everyone for you, but if anybody wanted to say anything, go ahead.
I got nothing so far. All you.
Cool beans. So yeah, let's see. I guess the best place to start would be the beginning. So I'm working on this fan fiction, which I have dubbed Everyday Life with Mobian Girls, and that goes back to my earlier days in the fandom. Back whenever I was an active 4chan user, the 4chan video game general board has a long-running dedicated Sonic the Hedgehog general thread, which has been around for quite a few years. They're several thousand thread count deep. I want to say it's probably one of the longest running numbered threads at this point. So it's been around for a while. I posted on it in its early conception, back whenever it was in the low hundreds still. I was actually around. I remember when Bump and Sage were maybe not whenever they were first created, but I remember whenever they were still new, whenever they were, there were still people a lot of fan art getting drawn of them, that kind of stuff. So I am, or was, what some people might refer to as an old fag. Now I wasn't a humongous Sonic fan. I just kind of poked around at it. So
A
I would come
lurker.
and go.
A
Oh yeah,
lurker.
yeah, yeah. I posted some, but I wasn't like super active or super well known. I would go sometimes, like weeks, sometimes months without posting because there were long stints of time like between games, and I wasn't super into the comics or anything at the time. So I would leave for a few months. I would come back a couple hundred threads later. I would stick around for a while. I would leave. I would come back. Um, so I was an on and off poster, but I was well aware of the franchise, well aware of the thread, the general for quite a while. Um, and one day I just happened to be on, and I'd been contemplating starting a new writing project. I've always written. I've written different fanfic stuff on and off for years, for well over like 20 years now. I mean, I'm nearing 40 years old, and I've been writing fan fiction since like my teens. So 2 decades at least. Um, and at the time, I was mostly active in the Sonic threads and the Pokemon threads.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember VP.
yeah, the VP threads. Some of the earliest Discord servers I were in were Pokemon roleplay Discord servers um that I found through the VP threads or whatnot. But basically it came down to a coin toss. I had decided I was either going to start a long running Pokemon fan fiction series, which I had, you know, I
I
actually
remember when
had
I
that
was trying
one.
to do one.
Yeah, I actually had that one like more planned out. I had, and anybody that's into Pokemon, it probably says this, but like, I've got my OC trainer who's basically my default go-to trainer that I name every in-game trainer after or whatever. I've got my
Yep.
standard team that I use every time. And he had his own little backstory. He's got his own stuff going. So it was like, okay, if I write a Pokemon fan fiction, I'm going to write it about this already established OC character that I have. And I did have a plot, and um, it was as cringe as any Pokemon fanfic would be. But like, I was also getting more into the Sonic fandom at that time. I had found out about the comics. I had started reading the Archie comics. I was about halfway through them. I had reached the Flynn era, and this was before I knew anything about Flynn, Ballers, Penders. Like I didn't know who was who. I was just reading the comic. So it was around like the mid hundreds to like late hundreds or something like that. Um, so I was like really starting to get into it. The comic was just getting better and better. There were all these characters, there was all this lore, and I'm sitting here, as somebody who's known about Sonic's existence since the original Genesis games, but never really like watched the shows or read the comics or anything like that. Now all of a sudden here I am like in my 30s, like catching up on all this stuff, and it's just like, damn, yeah, I didn't realize there was so much lore. I didn't realize that there was a world and like other characters and all this stuff going on. So I wanted to write a fan fiction, and it literally came down to a coin toss. I flipped a quarter, and it was like, heads, I'll write a Sonic related fan fiction. Tails, I'll write a Pokemon related fan fiction. And the coin toss landed on Sonic. So I was like, okay, I can only really get invested in one project. I'm not going to try to split my time. So I'm going to write a Pokemon, a Sonic related fan fiction. Um, and the reason I did it also is because in the threads one day, people were talking about fan fictions. They were talking about stories. The current conversation was about the whole two worlds debacle, which either is or isn't a thing, decided depending on what year it is. Currently, we're in the one world phase. I'm sure it'll go back to two worlds, before the next game comes out. And hey, um, and somebody was mentioning like humans in Sonic games. Humans in the Sonic worlds, humans coexisting, and some random anonymous poster said something about, some of the local writers, some of our fan fiction writers, somebody needs to write a Sonic related story, but is focused around a human main character. And me being me and being, you know, a shit poster at the time and you know, just being whatever for funsies, I was like, you know what, I will write it. I will write a Sonic related fan fiction centered around a human main character. But Monkey Paw is like, but it's going to be a harem story. I'm going to write, you know, I'm going to write an Annan and all the girls story. You know, I'm going to write a story about a human dude who meets all the female Sonic characters and gets, you know, like down and busy with them. You know, it's like you guys asked for a Sonic story that's like based around a human main character, so this is what you're going to get. And that's where I picked up my old name that some people from that time period know me by. Is the person, the poster who replied to me told me to shut the hell up and get the fuck out, you autistic right fag. And I was like, you know what? You mean that as an insult? You're trying to make fun of me. It's like, but guess what? That's what I'm going to call myself now. So, you know, it was me taking what was meant as an insult and being like, you know, haha, you try to make fun of me, but I'm taking it seriously. And went by that name for a good long while, until I started associating with 4chan and 4chan related places less, and started spending more time around less 4chan related places. And I started to go, you know, maybe that's not the best name to go by. You know, that's not the best thing to be known as in a community like this. So, you know, it got dumbed down, it got abbreviated, and now it's you know, the AWF, it's off. So that's how it got started. That was the inception of me deciding to write this fan fiction. You know, yeah, real humble beginnings there. You know, some shit poster on 4chan who decided to write something just to troll people because they wanted a human-based Sonic story. Yeah, that's a great way to start a 3-year running project.
Fantastic.
I'm just gonna mention, like, you know, when you said like it was a coin toss between Sonic or Pokemon or whatever, it just like I'm just thinking like an alternate like scenario where, like you said, it was because of the whole drama, like the whole drama thing with DHT that, you know, I ended up being here. But the thing is, I'm just thinking like I probably still meet you in one way or another because I'm, well, everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thought. I mean, I have wondered often, especially recent, a lot of times, with how things with me in the community are. But there have been a lot of times where I've wondered, you know, it obviously it's like, what would have happened if it had gone the other way? Because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of crossover. A lot of people in the Sonic community that I know now also dabble in Pokemon related stuff. So I very may well have met like some people or whatever. But you know, then you gotta think there's stuff like Sonic Legacy, all the people involved with that, all the time I spent with that group. You know, I probably would have never even heard about them if it had gone the other way. I mean, I got into that project because I saw people were posting pictures of Tempest, the mascot character, in the Sonic General threads. And at the time, I was reading through the comics, and I knew that there were some, you know, aquatic characters. So I keep seeing pictures of this blue dolphin girl, and I'm like, holy crap, she looks cool. You know, when does she show up in the comic? And people are like, oh, she's not in the Archie comic. She's from this fan project, Sonic Legacy. You know, so I never would have gotten into that. So, you know, there's a whole group of people I never would have met. Probably never would have gotten involved in like any of the Dylan stuff. And even with the way all that went and all the shenanigans he's up to these days. And yes, I do still keep up with the Kiwi Farms threads, because again, I've met several people from the Kiwi's Farms threads that actually turned out to be relatively decent people. I mean, Seti's here, you know, like in the conversation now. He's a pretty chill dude. You know, and it's like I never. The upside is it's like I never would have gotten into all the finger quotes drama that I've gotten to, which of course the Pokemon fandom has its own, drama. Every fandom does. But at the same time, looking at it from a positive way, it's like I never would have met a lot of the people I met. I never would have gotten involved in a lot of the projects that I've been involved with. I've been in touch with several of like the official writers and artists on the comics. For a good portion of time, I was the guy who didn't care. I didn't have what's it called, the celebrity worship or whatever. It's like people would want to ask questions. They would want to talk to the artists or do whatever, but nobody wanted to be the person that would DM them. It's like, oh, they're an official artist, you can't just DM them and ask them a question. And then there's me, who's like, why the fuck not? I would DM people like Evan Stanley, or Adam Thomas. I'd be like, hey, this issue you drew, this background character you drew in this comic, what's their name? It's like, how did you come up with this character? What was your process for writing the story? What did you have planned for the old comics that got canceled that you didn't get around to writing? I would go ask these people that, and I've
opened the DMs until they tell you they're not.
Yeah, and I've gotten some pretty interesting answers from some of them. And again, if I never got into this fandom, if the coin toss had gone the other way, that never would have happened. And I don't see being that involved in like the Pokemon fandom, because they don't have a Western, an American written comic book. It's everything there is like, there's a manga. Yeah, there's a manga, but I don't see the manga writers as readily available to just a normal person like me as a Western comic book writer might be. So it
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to get
Twitter, but they don't really speak to the English fans.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's really how it all got started. Now, the concept for the story itself is also another interesting story. Celeste and anybody else can attest to this. 99% of my quote good ideas start out as just complete shit posts, just completely random ideas. Me just spitting some stupid idea out that I think is funny, and then other people going, you know what, that works. So at the time,
when I try to promote ideas in the Legacy server.
It's like I'll just say the dumbest shit, and Celeste and other people will be like, "Yeah, no, that's a cool idea," and I'm like, "No, I was literally making fun of something." It was, but I had recently come from binge watching the Monster Musume anime, the Everyday Life with Monster Girls, which, if you're paying attention, that title will be very familiar. So it was the series about a, just standard anime protagonist, normal everyday guy who, through whatever shenanigans, ends up living with a house full of monster girls who are all vying for his affection in one form or another. And so I said, you know what? That's a great concept. I said, what if I just write that, but I make it Sonic characters instead? So I came up with the concept of Everyday Life with Mobian Girls, the story of a generic harem story protagonist, the Anon character, who through shenanigans of his own ends up living with a house full of various Sonic female characters. And again, what started as just a joke concept, I honestly never expected to get past the first story. And I've said this before, the first episode, I wrote the first episode, which my writing, anybody that's read anything I write very long. I like words. Once I start typing on a keyboard, I write many words. So even for just being like a first part, it was still like a pretty long story. It came out to being like I think somewhere around like 28,000 words. And that was just the first part. But and I've said this before. I said this I'm talking to Dylan about it back whenever he was, reading it and making fun of it or whatever. I've said it to plenty of other people. When I originally wrote it, I intentionally wrote it badly. Anybody that reads the first part, if you've read the whole thing, everything I've got posted now, all the way up to episode 6, which is the one that's currently in progress, like you can tell that like from the second and third episode onward, that the writing itself starts to get better. That's because I intentionally wrote the first issue bad. It was a joke. It was a joke idea. I said, I'm going to take this stupid concept and I'm going to intentionally write it badly, kind of as a way to make fun of the whole idea, an Anon story about an Anon character who meets female characters from this franchise and hooks up with them, but
It was too well recepted.
yeah, people liked it. I wrote it and I posted, and people were like, hey, it's kind of wordy, it's kind of long, but when's the second part? Who are you going to add next? What are you going to write about? And I'm like, well, shit, people want me to write a second part. So I started writing the second part, which I took a little bit more seriously, and then I posted it. And again, I got good reception. People are like, oh wow, yeah, this you're really stringing it together. This is, when's the next part? And I'm like, well, shit, I got to start taking this seriously. So the more I wrote, like the more serious I actually started taking the series, to the point where now that I'm about 2/3 of the way done with the 6th episode, I've actually gone back and completely started rewriting the first episode, which I've got the rewrite about halfway done. Now plot wise, it's still the same plot. The exact same events happen, but like a lot of the stupid humor, a lot of the meme references, a lot of the overly long descriptive narrative that I did on purpose, I'm cutting a lot of that out so that it's more well written. It's not as much of a slog to get through, because I tell people that I'm like, look, if you read
more content.
yeah, if it's like yeah, if you read the story, the first part is the worst part. I tell people that up front. I'm like, the first part is the worst part because I intentionally wrote it to be poorly written. Now that said, intentionally writing something to be poorly written, it's still poorly written. So it's like, okay, if I'm at the point where I want people to take the story seriously, then maybe I should invest some time in going back and writing a less crappily written version of it. So that's something that I do need to finish at some point. Another thing that I wanted to do, because the story is very, very not safe for work. I mean, it is a harem story to its core. It is about a guy surrounded by a bunch of female characters, and they have sex, copious amounts of sex. So like, it is very not safe for work. I had intentions of writing it in a way that I could basically split it and make 2 versions, where there would be a safe for work version of the story that maybe just like mentions innuendo and alludes to events, but then actually has the not safe for work content like cut out, edited out, and then to have a basically a full version, which an unabridged version that has all the not safe for work content in it too. But with me having left basically every safe for work group that I've been involved with the last few years, I'm kind of sitting here like, do I actually want to do that now? Is there a point to it? Do I just keep writing it for the adult community?
I think it's a good idea to have, because you never know what like happens down the line.
It's something else that I have to consider, because like I said, I'm kind of demotivated. I haven't been doing a lot of writing at all right now. So I really don't want to force myself to put any extra work into creating a safer work version of the story if I myself am not even in any of these safer work communities anymore. It's like, so what I need to do is just get back into writing at all. And then if I still feel like making the safer work version, I can go back to it later.
Fair.
And do that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's how it started. That's where the story originated. That's how I entered the fandom and the community and all that fun stuff. And everything else from there is its own story, the ups and downs, the history of Off. We're not here to talk about me as a person. We're here to talk about this stupid story that I write. So we're not going to get into too much of that today. So let's see. I guess I was trying to check something real quick. There it is. I guess I'll tell a little bit about the story itself, like what it is, not like just the overall synopsis, which I have done before. But just like a general synopsis of the story itself is, like I said, it centers around my OC Annan. It is an Annan story, and this is something I've explained 100 times before, but always needs to get explained again. It is an Annan story. The main character is Annan, but that is his character. He is not meant to be my self-insert. He's not meant to be a self-insert character. Like, he is a character in his own right who is named Annan, basically. His character is a depiction of what the Annan character stereotype, it is. Of course, he's portrayed, he's drawn, he's the typical, just like normal dude, the normal bald guy, Annan character or whatever. But like, that's his character. He's not a self-insert. He's not a faceless, just generic second person, character or whatever. He is a character. He exists within this world. And that is one thing that does eventually get addressed, because people tell me that all the time. They're like, well, that doesn't make any sense, but that's a stupid idea. And with multiverse stories being so popular right now, the Spider-Verse and the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness came out. Anybody that reads like superhero comic books is familiar with the concept of a multiverse, with the concept of there being an infinite versions of a particular character. It's kind of like that. The way I see Annan is that there are an infinite number of Annan characters. There's this great Annanverse, and every fan fiction that revolves around an Annan character, there's an infinite numbers of Annan. But the Annan in my story is one specific character. There's an infinite numbers of Annans, but there is only one Annan. He exists, in his universe. He is the Annan of that universe, and the story revolves around him. That's the best way I can explain that to people these days. So the plot of the story is how it all gets started is off screen, like before the actual events of the story take place. He sees an ad on the internet while browsing the internet. It's an ad for this program, this project that this group called the Foundation is doing, and they are looking for regular people. People that have their own homes, whether whether they own their own home or whether they're renting, just anybody that has their own home, vehicle, a job, basically like steady, normal life living people, and they're looking for them to kind of do this sort of exchange program where they're gonna have these aliens, these people from another world, that they're doing this experiment to see how they integrate into normal human society. So they're looking for people like, hey, would you let an alien live with you? It's like, and if you get approved for the program, like all of your utilities and expenses will be paid for the whole duration of the program. So that's the only part Annan really cares about. He's like, the alien people, whatever, but hey, they're going to pay my rent and bills. Hell yeah, sign me up. So he gets approved, and the story itself starts with him in the process, like waiting for his new Mobian roommate to show up. Now the story itself is based on all all Sonic lore, like all lore is involved. You know, there's stuff from Archie, Fleetway, the games, IDW comics, like it's all there's lore from every different branch of the franchise, but the setting itself basically takes place about a decade after the events of Sonic X. So in the world that Anon lives in, like these Mobians, these aliens from another dimension or whatever, have visited the planet before. So it's not like just a completely random thing, you know. It's like, you know, people. This is a thing that happened. Like there's recorded history of, oh, these little animal people came to Earth and they fought this evil scientist guy and then they left again. You know, so in the world Anon lives in, these are events that happen. So just from like reading about them online or maybe seeing stuff on TV, like he knows that these are beings that exist and have been on the world before, you know. So it's not like he, you know, it's just like, oh, these furry aliens that nobody's ever seen before and just, hey, let one live with you. So he does have a concept of who and what they are. You know, it's like everybody knows, you know, the Mobians. Oh, those are those little animal aliens that came to our planet a few years ago and fought that evil scientist. So he's aware of who they are. So he signs up, and you know, the episode 1, you got to use the most basic character of all. So of course the first character, the first Mobian character that he gets introduced to is Amy Rose. You know, she's the go-to, most recognizable basic female character of the series. You know, older fans might argue, they might be like, oh, this is Sally Acorn, or, you know, it's you know, Blaze the Cat's been in more, it's whatever. No, Amy is the basic girl. When you think female Sonic character, you know, just basic default female Sonic character, it's Amy. So she was the first one that showed up. Anybody that's read any of the story knows that Anon's personality, he's a nervous wreck. He has a stutter. I like his stutter. Some people have complained about the stutter. They're like, oh, that makes him seem stupid. It's like, well, he is a stupid guy. He has a stutter. He is very socially awkward. He's not, you know, he's a normal guy. He doesn't have like 50 pronouns and labels in his bio or anything like that, but he is relatively introverted. You know, he lives by himself. He spends a lot of time playing video games, playing on the internet. You know, he doesn't go party or anything like that. So he's a good guy. Like, he's got a good heart. He's friendly. He's not like a mean person or anything like that, but he is socially awkward. He has a stutter. He doesn't pick up on a lot of cues. Like, you know, a lot of the girls will make innuendos, or, you know, people will make jokes at his expense, and a lot of times they go right over his head because he just doesn't comprehend that, oh, somebody's making fun of me. You know, he's just like, oh yeah, somebody said a thing. Yeah, that's true. So he's you know, he's kind of, I don't want to use the word quirky because everybody's like, oh yeah, my character's so quirky, you know, but he's got character flaws, but he's got character perks. I mean, there's really no other way to explain it. He's Anon. I mean, that's just who he is. You know, so now you have this like relatively introverted guy, doesn't really socialize much. You know, he doesn't have like an established friends group. You know, this isn't a story like, oh, he's a high schooler and he's got all these classmates or anything like that, you know, or it's not like, oh, he's part of some group and he's got other people in this group. No, it's like, no, he's by himself. He goes to work, he comes home, he plays video games for a few hours, he goes to bed. I mean, that's his life. So he goes from that to all of a sudden now he has this 3-foot tall, pink, furry alien girl living with him, who he immediately realizes is way more attractive than he expected a furry alien to be. So, I mean, not only does he have a female suddenly living with him, he has a female furry alien. And he's just all kinds of confused. You know, he's like, he looks at her and he's like, you know, wow, I find this person, this alien, to be very attractive. And then he immediately starts to question himself. He's like, wait, is that weird? Am I weird for finding this person attractive? She's not even human. What does she think of me? Is she even considered attractive by her own species standards? You know, he's very self-conscious of his own his own thoughts and behavior. So there's some awkwardness, and they hang out, and they go out. He shows her around the town or whatever, and we're introduced to the early story semi-antagonists of the group, the bully characters. They go out, they're getting a sandwich somewhere because Annan, being a single guy who lives by himself, has like no food in the refrigerator. So he's like, oh crap, we can't make dinner. Let's just go out and eat. So while they're out, they run across this guy who calls himself Boss, who is the self-proclaimed most badass ass guy in the city. Just the tough guy. He's the narrow glare. He's got his hair up in a pompadour. He carries a jacket like over his shoulder. Just the typical tough guy antagonist character or whatever. And he's followed by his entourage, his two minions or whatever you want to call them, Puck and Orville. And they run across Annan while he's out, and it's not like they have a history. It's not like Boss and Annan know each other. They're not like high school rivals, or this guy's been picking on me since I was 5 or anything like that. Completely random encounter. They just happen across they just come across Annan while him and Amy are out, and Boss is just being a dick, and he's just like totally making fun of Annan. He says something about he basically like calls Amy a pet or something like that. And I can't exactly remember the phrasing. And let me grab a drink real quick. It's like, look at this loser. He can't get a human girl to go out with him, so he's got to like go out with an animal or something like that. Just really being a dick, really being antagonistic for laughs or whatever. And Annan gets super upset about it, and Amy is handling it in typical Amy fashion. She kind of cracks wit back with Boss or something. She says something about well, at least Annan can get a girl to go out with him. Look at you, you're walking around with just a couple dudes. Like, where's your girls? And of course that makes Boss even angrier, and he starts smarting off. And it's like the whole time Annan's sitting here, and he's kind of like I shouldn't just sit here and let this guy talk like this. If it was just me, then yeah, I would let him talk down to me. I would just put my head down and wait till the guy goes away or whatever. But he's like, oh, but I'm supposed to be this. She's living with me now, and I'm supposed to be a good representation. So it's like just about the time he builds up courage to stand up and say something to this dude, he's about 2 seconds too late. Because Amy pulls the whole magic hammer thing and like cracks the Boss dude over the head with a hammer and like basically knocks him out, and the other two guys have to drag him off. And of course Annan's sitting there like, where the hell did she just get that giant hammer from? Because hammer space is a non-concept to Annan. So it's like the more time he spends with her, the more he learns about the more time he spends with her, the more he learns that he doesn't know anything about her or her species or anything like that. It's like he's constantly, every time he thinks like, okay, I've got this figured out. Oh, nope, something new just happened. I have no idea what I'm doing. And that does go on. The story ends with the two of them being at the house, and they come home and they're relaxed and they're watching some TV. Amy ends up taking a shower, and Annan's apartment, he's got a 2-bedroom apartment, and the rooms are on either end of the hall with a bathroom in between them. So she's in there taking a shower, and he's never had a roommate before, so he realizes, he's like, hey, I can hear the shower, I can hear the shower through my bedroom wall or whatever. And he does kind of get a little creepy. He's like got his head against the wall. He's listening. He's like, oh man, I've never heard, knew I could hear people in there taking showers. Well, it just so happens that while she's in the shower, for whatever reason, she's jilling around in there or whatnot, and she's getting into it, and she just happens to like say his name. And he's got his head up to the wall, so he hears her say it. So he's like, "Wait a second, is she fucking in there touching herself? Like saying my name? What the am I hearing this right? Is this a thing? Am I hearing this right?" So he's just being completely an awkward mess about it or whatever. Long story short, it is a harem anime. They do end up like fooling around, of course. And then, at one point he does ask her, because she asks him, she's like, oh, do you have a girlfriend? He's like, no. And he asks her, he's like, well, do you have a boyfriend? And, of course, that whole Amy Sonic dynamic or whatever, she's like, well, there is this one guy and I kind of like him, and he doesn't realize he's supposed to be going out with me yet. But, it's kind of an on and off thing. So at the end of the story, when they start fooling around, Amy approaches him, and he's obviously not going to turn it down or whatever, but he does ask. He's like, I thought you said, there's another guy, there's a guy you like, or anything like that. And she basically just like drops the friends with benefit card, like right on the spot. She's like, look, we're both adults. We obviously are both okay with this happening. She's like, I'm not trying to fall in love with you. I'm not trying to start a relationship. She's basically like, my heart belongs to somebody else, but you can borrow my ass. So, I mean, that's how that dynamic starts, because I want to stay true to the characters. I don't want to have Amy, like suddenly just meet this dude and just like fall totally head over heels for him. She still has romantic interests for, the Sonic character, which is funny right in the story, because I go out of my way never to mention any other male character by name. So she never actually mentions Sonic by name. She just talks about this guy she knows, this guy back in her planet. She's known him for a while, and they're going to get married one day, but he doesn't realize it yet. But while I'm here, me and you might as well fool around. So she's very much still the Amy that we know. She's very much still in love with Sonic back on her own world. But while she's here, she might as well have a little fun. I mean, nobody said she can't still get some just because she likes another dude, So, yeah, it's like one of the things I've always tried to do is to stay true to the characters as they are in the comics or games or whatever, but also in a way that shows, okay, but how would they react, in this scenario? Like if you took a 20 she'd be like 22, 23-year-old. So let's just say you take a 23-year-old Amy away from Sonic, away from Mobius, and you suddenly have her roommating, living with another dude. It's like, after 10 years of Sonic not reciprocating her feelings, would she? Yeah, she's with this other dude. He's a nice guy. He's kind of cute. I'm not looking for anything serious, but friends with benefits. It doesn't seem too far-fetched from her character, given the dynamic of the situation that she's in. So yeah, that's how the story started. That's a very long, short synopsis of the first episode. I know some of y'all have read it. I know Celeste has read it. Sweet has. I think Force has. I don't know if he has or not. So I mean, like y'all have read it. What do y'all think of just the first episode?
I honestly like the narration. Like, I know you poorly wrote it unintentionally, but like I like that sort of stupid humor. But like the context of the story itself, I thought it was well thought.
I guess no one else wants to talk. Yeah. Like I said, it's a lot of meme humors. There's a lot of pop culture references and stuff like that. It was a case of basically trying to make fun of or homage as much as possible. And like I said, I don't think that's entirely bad. I just have learned over time to like tone it down. I don't want to tell all my jokes in one story. This is supposed to be a long running story. So a brilliant joke or reference that I think up now, if I've already used 2 or 3 references, homages or callbacks to other stuff, it's like if I think up something else, maybe I can use it later. I don't have to tell all my jokes in one go. So yeah, like I said, with the possibility of a rewrite, one of the things I'm basically looking to do is to trim the fat, not to change the story itself, but to just kind of cut the excess off. Like I know two of the things in specifically that a lot of people that make fun of it for is the cherry Coke scene and a door scene, and I'm not 100% remembering that one, but there was a particular scene where they were back home and they'd ordered some pizza and they were drinking cherry cokes, and Annan was going on about how cherry cokes are superior, which is going to be a joke later in the series. There's another character who prefers vanilla soda, and it's going to create this big debate between vanilla soda versus cherry soda. So it's something that I wrote that I plan on being a thing that gets addressed later, but I did spend like a whole page just describing Annan and his can of cherry coke. And when I went back and read it after hearing other people talk about this guy spent 5 fucking hours talking about a can of coke, I went back and reread it for myself, and it's like, they kind of got a point. I could say the same thing with a lot less words. So that's something I need to go back and do one day. But yeah, that's basically it. That's how I got interested in writing a Sonic story, what I based the Sonic story on, and just a rough synopsis of the first part of the story. Let's see. Sweet's not on voice. Oh, she's in the text channel. Sweet said, I like the concept of story, one dude and lots of Mobian girls meeting him slowly. It was long for me to read, but I still enjoyed it at my own pace. I mean, yeah, that's one of the great things about it being a story. It is long, but you don't have to read it all at once. Like I don't write it all at once. I write any given part of the story in segments. I'll write 3,000 or 4,000 words, and then I'll post an update, and then I'll write 3,000 or 4,000 more words, and then I'll post another update. I write it in small bites, so if people read it in small bites, it's like, hey, I get it. It's a super long freaking story. It's like any series. It's like binge watching a show on TV. You can either sit down and watch it all at once, or you can watch a little bit of a time. I mean, it just whatever way you want to enjoy it. It's as long as you enjoy it. That's the only part I'm worried about. So let's see. I'll jump into some of these questions. I got a question channel in my Discord server, which I've had forever for people to ask questions. I've never really gotten around to answering them in an audio format like this before. So I can go back and start addressing that now. I'm probably not going to answer all the ones that got asked. I'll do a couple, and if I record again, I'll do a couple more. So I'm just trying to go down the list here to see where they start. So Lolly, aka Stone, who is a longtime friend that also was an old 4chan poster. He originated from the Sonic General Board. He's drawn some art for me before related to the story. He drew the Styx getting a bath picture for my birthday a few years ago, actually, and that's still one of my favorite pictures that I have tied to the story. One of my favorite scenes that I've written overall so far. So I'm very thankful that he drew that out for me. He always has questions, and anytime I ping anybody, I'm like, hey, does anybody have any questions or comments? He's 90% of the time, he's the first one to reply. He's always got a question, always got a comment. So I do want to point out that I am just thankful he stuck around this long, and that he always does have some input for me anytime I ask. So his first question on the list is, how many girls even have swimsuits for the beach episode? Will Styx or someone else attempt to go commando because I have no clothes but I still have fur? Or do the opposite come in full dresses with no intention of frying under the sun? Can any of them even get a tan, at least Rouge being full body shaved? I've always joked about doing a beach episode. I mean, any long-running series, any anime-esque series always has the typical beach episode. And the city that Annan lives in actually is a seaside city. There's a harbor section. There is a beach. It's a coastal. That's the word I'm looking for. It is a coastal city. So there is a beach. I'm sure at some point I will get around to writing a beach episode. I don't know how many girls will be introduced by then. I don't know if it will be the full cast that I have planned or only a partial cast. Um, I'm fairly certain all of the girls have a swimsuit. Will have a swimsuit. Some will be different than others. It'll be a little variety. You'll have the more modest characters will probably wear like the one pieces, or maybe you'll have the girl that wears the swimsuit that has like the skirt bottom or whatever, and then you'll have the other girls who walk out on the beach wearing like the string bikini. Like Rouge is obviously going to wear as little as she can get away with because that's what everyone expects from Rouge. As far as any characters going commando, maybe at some point, I mean, with it being a not safe for work story, you would expect at some point some character to not wear or to lose their swimsuit.
That'd be Sticks.
I mean, yeah. But I was actually thinking the possibility of maybe some of the already more aquatic themed characters, like, hey, let's just say you have a shark character, you got a shark in the ocean. How many sharks have you seen wearing swimsuits? So shark, ocean, no swimsuit. That's actually not something I've put a whole bunch of thought into, but once I get around to fleshing out an episode like that, that's definitely something I would have to come back and think to. Who would wear what? Who would wear nothing? As far as them tanning goes, the majority of the girls, and I know that this actually goes against like actual animal biology or whatever, because animals do have fur on their muzzles, but the characters that have the more rounded muzzles, the ones that look like they don't have fur, I personally don't headcanon having fur. I see them as being smooth muzzled. A lot of characters that are portrayed with the tan bellies, it's tan, it's not fur. Like Amy has tan arms. It's not her pink fur, so obviously it must be skin. So that part of her at least would be able to tan or burn. You have some characters that don't have fur. The before mentioned sharks. There's dolphin characters. There are other kind of characters, other aquatic themed characters. There may be a reptile or two. Reptiles don't have fur. Reptiles do like to be in the sun, but anybody that's ever owned an amphibian or reptile can tell you that if they get too much sun, they can get very much sick from it. So, you got to put characters like that into conversation. You got a dolphin who doesn't have any fur, and she's out on the beach. Well, she's going to get sunburned, so she needs Annan to rub, some sunscreen all over her. There's your beach episode plot. So yeah, it's just definitely something I'll have to put thought into whenever I get around to writing such an episode. The other big question is going to be, where's all the watermelons going to come from? Because anime style beach episode, you got to have watermelons. Anyways, moving on. Another long time friend, another long time person I've known on Discord and other communities. Let's see. I don't know which one of his names I should read. I'll just read the name that he has in the server. He goes by Clove, and his profile picture is the associated pronghorn. He says, aside from Linda, do you plan on having any other echidna girl besides her? Quick answer, yes. So Linda, the bad guy echidna girl, the leather wearing bad girl from the Archie comics, is in the Everyday Life story. She's already been introduced. She hasn't met Annan yet. She's just been introduced in a scene with Eggman. So she is present. Will she be the only echidna girl? No. I do plan on using everybody's favorite Ghost Girl. Tikal is going to be there. She's an echidna. She counts. I'm going to be using Laura Sue, Julie Sue's the mom, Laura Sue's the daughter. Yeah, Laura Sue's the one from the future. So yeah, I plan on using Laura Sue before anybody gets anything in a bunch. Oh my God, you're gonna get sued by you know who. I
Shade.
already asked. I have a screenshot of a public tweet where I asked a specific writer how he felt about people using his fan characters and his characters in fan fictions, and he said he was okay with it. So before anybody comes at me, I have permission to use Laura Sue in my story. I asked. Shade is one I've considered, but I'm not 100% decided on. One, because I myself am not very familiar with her story. I never played Chronicles. I know you in particular and a couple other people liked it and have played it and are very deep lore about it. But me personally, I don't feel like I know enough about her or her game to justify using her. But I could also learn more at some point and maybe decide to add her. As of right now, she's a low tier maybe. She's one I could see me getting convinced to use, but I haven't been convinced to use her yet. So right now, the Echidna girls that I have on the list are Lienda, who is present, Tikal, who is very, very close to getting introduced, and Laura Sue, who is going to show up later on in the series, in a future episode, you could say. Haha, get it? Future, because she's from the future. Anyways. Let's go down on the list. I'll answer one or two more. Like I said, Lolly asked about 6 questions. I don't want to answer too many from him at once. So I'll grab some of these other ones and then maybe come back and answer 1 or 2 more of his. 9 Sunshine 9. Who I wish could be here. He wasn't having a very good day today. He's another longtime friend that I know who also helps with Legacy. As a matter of fact, I sort of kind of introduced him to Legacy. He was doing some writing of his own. Celeste was in a group. I was familiar with him, and I was like, "Hey, you should try auditioning for this comic." And he was like, "No, I don't think my writing's that good." And I'm like, "No, you should audition for this comic." So he auditioned for the comic, and now he's their head writing editor. So if you ever think you're not good enough to try something, try anyway, because for all you know, you might end up running it one day. Real good friend. As a matter of fact, he helps me with the editing of my story. He proofreads a lot for me. He updates it to the archive site for me. He's actually gone and created a formatting syntax for archive of our own, specifically to indent my story, because I hate double-spaced block paragraph stories. Indentation is a thing that has existed. I don't know why people don't indent. So he was actually helpful enough to create a format specifically for AO3 that whenever he updates the story, it indents the paragraphs for me. So super, super, super cool of him to do that. He asks, would some of the girls try to get jobs? And then he goes on to ask, do any of them have special reasons for being there? Do any of them have ulterior motives? To answer the first question, would any of them get jobs? At the current time, no, because part of the deal with the foundation doing this program is they all get a foundation-funded stipend. When they show up, they get a debit card, and it gets X amount of money loaded on it, and the foundation just gives them money, like, hey, welcome to Earth. Here's a basically unlimited debit card. The exact amount is never specified, but when Amy gets her card early on in the story and shows Annan how much she has, he's kind of put off because it's like, well, shit, that's more than I make doing my job. So they're well funded. So they don't necessarily have any reason to find like gainful employment. That being said, the program, as far as most of the characters are aware, isn't a permanent thing. They're not coming to Earth like to live here forever. It's a program. It's like, there's no set period of time, but it could be like anywhere from a few weeks to a few months. So it's not like they're coming here to live permanently and it's like, oh, I got to find a job, I got to find my own place or anything like that. Now, whether any characters choose to pursue something like that, like, hey, yeah, I like this planet, I'll stay here. That's up to the individual character, and that's not something I've ever considered addressing because I know where the story is going to go in the future. So no, they wouldn't try to get jobs. Some of them might help out at different places. Like in the story, there's an Italian restaurant which is going to come into play. The guy that runs the restaurant likes Annan. They go out there to eat a lot. So maybe you could have a character who likes to cook, helping out at this restaurant, or something like that. But as far as like looking for full-time gainful employment or anything like that, no, I don't really have any plans on them doing anything like that. Do any of them have special reasons for being there, or do any of them have ulterior motives? Yes and yes. It later on, about the 4th or 5th episode into the story, we find out that the Foundation is actually doing a lot more than just seeing how well Mobians can live with humans. They have other Mobians living with them. They have other Mobians on Earth that they have brought over for very specific reasons. One of the things the Foundation has done is they've got their hands on, and this is spoiler territory, you don't find this out until a couple episodes into the story, but they've got their hands on the Master Emerald. They have politely asked to borrow it from the Emerald's guardian, which is all the only explanation given for how they got their hands on it. But there are specific characters who are brought in just because of their association with the Master Emerald. Like Rouge is there because of her history. Like the Foundation knows about who she is, her involvement with Gun and stuff like that. And they know, hey, this chick likes the Master Emerald. So if we bring her over here and hire her to help us keep, watch over it, she's not going to let anything happen to it because she likes it. So it's like, that's the thing. Another character is Sally Acorn. She's brought over, but she's not brought over like to live with anybody. She's brought over basically to work directly with the Foundation. She's a princess. She represents the kingdom of Acorn, back on her planet or whatever. Again, the Master Emerald is in the Foundation's possession. So, Sally's like, hey, if you guys are going to have this item that is of such importance to my planet in your possession, then I would appreciate being there to help make sure y'all don't do anything bad with it. So that's one of the reasons why, she's originally involved and stuff like that. So do any of them have special reasons for being there? Absolutely, yes. They're not all there just to live with humans and to hang out. Some of them are there for very specific reasons. They just all happen to end up living with Annan because, that's the story. Do any of them have ulterior reasons or ulterior motives for being there? Yes, but not nearly as many. Speaking of Sally, another character who's going to get introduced soon is going to be Auntie Sally, aka Alicia, from the evil version of Mobius. And she comes over basically just to start shit. She comes over through Eggman's interdimensional portal. Later turns out that he's got his hands on his own, and she stows away. She sneaks onto the human world via his portal, and ends up finding out where Annan and all the other girls lives, and finding out that it's this big science thing going on with the Foundation, and she knows that Sally's there, so she actually infiltrates and sneaks in just to start trouble. Ends up getting caught by Annan, but Annan doesn't realize that she's like an evil version of Sally. He's like, "Oh, Sally, you're in this room like hacking into computers and shutting stuff down. What you doing?" And like she doesn't know that Annan like doesn't know that she's this alternate version of the character, so she pretends to be the real Sally. As a matter of fact, one of the things she's going to do is she's going to like lead Annan on. She doesn't realize at the point that Annan is basically like banging on the girls. So when he catches her in the Foundation's building, like doing shit she shouldn't be doing, she's like, "Oh, hey, tell you what, if you don't tell on me, then next time you see me, it's like, oh, we'll, I'll do all these favors with you." And she's basically like, long story short, and if this offends anybody, get over it. She's like setting Sally up to like potentially like get raped or something, because she tells Anna, she's going to tell Anna, she's going to be like, "Look, next time you see me," she's like, just take me. It's like, oh, if I fight back, it's just because that's what I'm into. Not realizing that Annan has like been banging Sally or whatever, and he's just kind of like, okay. so like what happens later is he runs into Sally, and of course, takes her up on this offer that the evil version of her made. And she's like, "Dude, Annan, I don't have time for this. What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, you said you'd say that." And he's trying to get down and dirty. And basically what he realizes is a visual difference. Because the Sally Acorn in the story, the regular Sally, is more based on her post-reboot design. So once he gets her about half undressed, he realizes, he's like, "Wait a second." He's like, "You've got a back stripe." And she's like, "Yeah, always have." And he's like, "Well, you didn't earlier." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And that's whenever he's like, "Well, I saw you in this room doing this stuff." And Sally being Sally puts two and two together real quick and realizes what's going on. And they end up like catching the evil Sally, the Alicia, the anti-Sally there. And so she's there. She definitely has ulterior motives. She does get caught. And the people running the program, the lady running the program, it's like, "Hey, we caught her, in the building. She was trying to do bad stuff. She was trying to hack some computers. She was trying to start trouble." And the lady running the program, who I'll talk about her more another time or whatever, she's very passive about literally just everything. And she's like, "Well, as long as she promises to behave, she can stay." And what are you saying? No, she's bad. She was doing bad stuff. And the lady's like, "Well, her options are to behave and stay, or we can lock her up in a deep, dark hole somewhere and she'll never see the light of day again." So, of course, she's like, begrudgingly agrees, like, "Well, I would rather, like voluntarily stay than to be locked up." So, she begrudgingly joins, everybody else, not like anybody's friends or anything like that, but definitely does show up with ulterior motives. So let me see. Watermelon contest. I think I got time for one more. It's getting pretty late here, and I got to go put my kids to bed at some point. So I'll go over one more, and then we'll call it night. We'll catch Rocket Pal. Rocket Pal is another art friend who works at Legacy. He's also got some of his own projects. He works. He helps with Project Armada. Real good boy. Draws a lot. Real cute OCs. He asks, "Do aquatic Mobians sleep in regular beds, or are their rooms filled with water when they get to the mansion? Like I know Tempest and Torrent require oxygen and don't breathe through water like fish, but if they had their own room, would they want it to be like an aquarium to hang out in, or would they want a regular room with regular beds? Or maybe they just have a blend and and just have water beds." I hadn't considered that. That's the waterbed thing. I'd never considered that before. I actually think that would be a funny concept for aquatic themed characters to have water beds. As far as sleeping in water or having like water-filled rooms, I don't think so, because even the non-mammalian aquatic animals, the sharks, breathe air. That's something that actually does get addressed when Annan first gets introduced to a shark character, which I just got around to writing in the 6th episode, in the beginning of the 7th episode. He gets introduced to a shark character, and his first thought is, "Oh, a shark. How's it breathing oxygen?" And then he literally stops himself, because at this point he's like, "You know what? I'm not even going to question it anymore. It's a shark. It walks, it breathes, it talks, whatever." So even non-mammalian based aquatic characters breathe oxygen. So having a water-filled room seems like it would be more of an inconvenience than anything else. Now, where they're staying does have a large pool available. So, hang on a second there. Hang on. All right, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my headset was going dead. I had to turn it off real quick. So even the non-mammalian characters probably would have a water-filled room. Where they're living, they have access to a rather large, nearly Olympic-sized pool. So possibly they could spend, more time than other characters in the pool. But as far as having like a water-filled room or a room with a pool in it, no, they sleep in this, this underwater area in their room. That just seems like it would be more of a hindrance, more of an inconvenience than anything else. So probably not. Let's see, but the other idea, the idea of having aquatic themed characters sleeping on a waterbed, that's something I haven't considered, and I think is like just funny enough to work. You could have an aquatic character with a bed, and Annan's fooling around with him in their room, and he noticed, he's like, oh shit, a waterbed, I haven't seen one of these in a while, and of course it would be an aquatic character who would say something like, oh well, you know what they say, Annan, there's more motion on the ocean, you know. I don't know if anybody in here has ever fooled around on a waterbed before, but it's a very interesting experience. I'll just say that without getting too much. So yeah, that's about all I got time to talk about today. We can do this again another time. I try to schedule it where more people that are interested can join. So we might do this again next week, or maybe make it like a bi-weekly thing, something like that. This is kind of just like every sit down, either discuss like the plot of an episode or an idea I want to get around to doing one day, or maybe have a conversation like about a specific character, like, oh, what do you have planned for this character, or something like that. Just something to keep myself busy enough that I keep my mind on the story. Because I think one of my biggest problems is when I go a long period of time without writing or without thinking about it or without talking to anybody about it, I kind of lose interest, and then it's hard for me to get back into. So this is going to be a thing I'm going to try to do every so often. How often I haven't decided yet. We'll see. We'll see. Whatever. So if you have any questions, I have a channel in the Discord server specifically for asking questions. You can always DM me. You can ask me on Twitter. Anybody that might be listening to this who's not in the server, just any questions, any comments, any input. I live for that kind of stuff. I mean, even if it's a complaint, even if you're telling me, hey, I read it and I didn't like this one part, you telling me what you don't like could help me write better in the future. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, simpage, like, oh my God, your story is the best story ever. It's like, no, it's not. I know it's not. I'm not expecting anybody to tell me that. I mean, if you like the story, like, great, thanks. I love that you like it, but I know it's not the best story ever, so if there are critiques or complaints, it's like, by all means tell me. I don't think an artist can properly grow if all they ever get is positive feedback. So yeah,
That's the truth.
I appreciate everybody that showed up. Thank y'all for turning up. Thank y'all for spending this much time listening to me like ramble, because that's basically all I've done. I'm gonna go ahead and hop off, go inside, take care of some kids, wash the dishes, and I will catch all of y'all later.
Good night.
Just as
Thanks for the
soon as
call.
I'm off the recording. Stop recording. There we go. All right, see y'all later.